Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. Work continues on the 2 5-window coupes we have here in the shop. There's still lots to do. In last week's episode, we worked on the building up and fixing the drip edge area here on the deck lid. We made the little support pieces. And then, as I said, I had to go and actually do the same thing on the New York coupe. So same process happened here. I didn't videotape any of it, but I made the repairs to the sheet metal here, up around the corner on both sides. I had to cut away the entire back here of where the drip edge was. I installed one of the drip edges here that I made. I haven't quite welded these in yet, but I also made these. What I'm working on right now is actually the hinge pins. The hinge pin area is basically what we build it up. I'm getting ready to put the hinge pins for the deck lid. So that's a Roadster one, and we can use it on the 5-window. That's what it looks like. So this one's installed. I've done this quite a few times before on all the Roadsters we build. So basically the center line of that pin is about 7/8 of an inch from this edge, and then it's a 1/2 an inch from here on the other side of the reveal down. So including the thickness of this, which I think is 3/6, there's my phone, should have turned my phone off, sorry about that. But it's 1/2 of an inch down from here, so I mark it. These areas are very difficult to drill because you can't go in with a regular drill. So over on the bench, I'll show you the drills that I used doing the Roadsters and before. So essentially, I've got these really long drills that I picked up from a previous job. They were throwing them out, fortunately. They were too short. All I had to do is basically sharpen them up. So, center punch the hinge pin there, and then start with the smallest drill, work your way up. But what the long drills allow you to do is come in quite straight versus if you're, with the air drill, if you had like a regular drill, and you'd be in like this, and that's just no good. So once you have the center hole drilled, then what you can do to get the screw holes in, because the critical one is the positioning of that hinge pin. So once you have the hinge pin in there, then basically position that in there, drill your first hole in the back, and then stick a 3/16 drill or something in there to hold your position, and then drill a second hole. Those holes need to be countersunk quite a bit because there's quite large screws. I think it's countersunk with a 3/8 drill, and then I just used a little chamfering tool so that those screws will sit in there quite flush. So I'm doing that on the New York coupe. I've got the holes drilled over here on the Moncton coupe for the same thing. I'm just going to finish doing that. Everything's all drilled in. All I have to do now is basically, as I just described, I've got to open those holes up with the larger drill to countersink them. So I'm going to carry on with that. Also in this episode, it's not there. Actually, it's missing. There's a support piece that I started working on that comes down here. So I'll show you in a few minutes as I work away on that. Here's the next piece we have to make for both of the 5-window coupes. This is actually a support that goes from behind the hinge pin area. This piece here actually was right there. I don't know if the camera lady wants to... There's my phone again, I'm sorry. And it basically goes to the floor, and there's a little feed onto it. So the bottom was missing. This is the only good one I have between the two coupes that I can make a copy off of. So this one, when I cut this corner out, I was actually able to salvage it. There is the original block I showed you a few minutes ago that goes, it would have went right behind there, and that's the hinge pin, and those are the bolts that would go through. So over here on the bench, I've actually started making the piece. Now my daughter keeps making fun of me because it's like, oh, you're just going to make everything, make a wood buck, and you make everything. Well, yeah, kind of. So Same thing over here. I made a wood buck that was basically the shape of this piece, and cut a piece of sheet metal and bent the edges over. I used the nylon hammer. The reason why you use the nylon hammer is because you don't mark or stretch the metal when you strike it. When around these corners here, when it comes down, there's little puckers that come up. So when you're hammering them down, you've actually got to put a small piece of metal behind it. And when the pucker comes up, you've got to whack the pucker. So you can see those little ripples there. As you're bending it over, I haven't shown it before, they come up. You've got to hit the center of those so that you can shrink the metal in as it comes around the corner. So right beside the camera lady is my first one. This is the second one, but that's the first one I made, the first blank that I've made. Oops. So this will be, I'm going to make 4, sorry, making her back up too far. I'm going to make 4 of these. Going to trim the tops and drill the holes, and then I'll basically cut the feet out so we'll weld them in place. So making 4 of those, 3 more of those. I'll probably make a couple spares up just in case, and follow along. As you just saw, I finished off making 6 of these. One assumption that I made was that since I had this piece, that it actually continued on straight down till it hit the floor. And I made my pieces accordingly. I was wrong. I Googled it, and actually the 5 windows are a little different. The 5 windows, for the piece from about here down, it actually flares out. So back to the drawing board a little bit, I went in and I had to modify my wooden buck so that I could reform the bottom of them so it would flare out here on the bottom. And then there's actually a bead down the center of it too. So what I had to do was basically go reform the bottom part of all of the pieces. So I did that. That's the way it's supposed to look, or a very close proximity thereof. It flares out at the bottom, and it comes at a 90 degree to touch the floor. I've got my holes drilled. Over here on the New York Coupe, I've actually, these here are made up for the Moncton Coupe. Over here on a New York Coupe, I've got them installed. So as I previously stated, the top section, the 2 screws that go into the hinge pin, go through it, and then it locates and gets welded to the floor down here. Just, well, the camera lady will insert a picture, I guess. So they're done now on a New York Coupe, and I'm going to carry on working on the Moncton Coupe and put those in and probably finish the video off. Here we are. Got the supports welded in place on the Moncton Coupe. The hinge pins are in. The pin actually comes out. It goes in and out like it's supposed to right here for the deck lid. So these are in place now. What's left to do on the back here is these are the rumble brackets. They come down to the floor much like the supports do for the hinge pins. I'm going to work on these the same way that I did for these ones, but in both cases on the New York Coupe and the Moncton Coupe, they're still attached. So I'm only going to have to repair them basically from the bottom down. I'm not going to replace the whole thing like I had to do with these ones. And then we'll continue working on the deck lid itself, putting the deck lid in place. So that's about it for this episode. Sorry it's short, but there was a lot of work that went into making these pieces and installing them on both the coupes. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please send me your comments. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. And everybody have a great week.